So today I'm gonna show you how Wheezy makes these crazy ethnic trumpet samples in the style of Gunna Young Thug like this. Yo guys, what's up and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how Wheezy makes crazy ethnic trumpet samples in the style of Gunna and Young Thug. So I'm basically going to break down the sample I just played y'all. I really hope y'all liked it. The sample is in my newest kit, which is called Care Package. The things that it includes will be on the screen right now. And please don't forget to like and to comment something. Make sure to use code LUCADID15 if y'all want to get the kit and if you want to improve your sample and beat making. And yeah guys, let's go. So for the first thing, as always, I use the Session Horns Pro Performance Bank from Contact, and I use the Session Horns preset as well. So I just left it on its default settings. And then for the pattern, what I basically did, as always when I make these brass type of samples, I basically just laid down this A minor chord, then just created a rhythm with it. So I just put two A minor chords here again, then there's one again, and then for this one I just changed these two notes up and transitioned it into a almost G sharp minor chord, but it's in a harmonic scale, so I had to switch some notes up. And then for the last part of these 4 bars I had this D note and everything else stayed the same. And then I just copied it over and copied it up and copied those chords and pasted them up 2 times, so the pattern has more of like a full feeling and doesn't sound that empty. And what I did was pressing Alt and R to randomize the velocities, as you can see right here. And first of all, the finished pattern is sounding like this. Then for the effects, I just set this RC20 for the wobble and the EQ. Then this Valhalla Vintage Verb where I tweaked the mix and the decay. Then this Simple Soothe on its hard setting and the depth to 5.9. And this EQ where I just cut out a lot of the lows and ducked some of the highs, just that it has more of like a vintage feeling. And that's something that you can do to make your sample sound a little bit more vintage. Then for the next thing I used Splice, and I had this Clio vocal, which I pitched down by 4 and then pitched it up by 12. So I basically could have pitched it up by 8. I brought it into time, put the mode on stretch, and this vocal phrase almost had the same bounce than the trumpet pattern, so it fitted perfectly. And the vocal phrase is sounding like this. And then for the effects on this vocal phrase, I had this 3D parametric EQ where I just cut out some frequencies that I didn't really like. Then this pan man with these settings, just that it gets panned from left to right all the time. Then this 3D reverb 2 with these settings, y'all can just copy them. It's basically the default settings, I just tweaked some of these knobs. Then this Soothe again on its default settings. And this EQ just cut out a lot of the lows and low mids, and to cut out some of the highs, just that the vocal gets stuck more into the background and I leave some frequencies open for the other instruments. Then for the next thing I used Contact again, and I used the Pinkillo key from World 6, and I left it on the default settings and laid down this pattern, which is pretty simple as you can see and pretty repetitive, but it adds like a nice bounce to it for the second part of the sample. And what I did again was randomizing the velocities to make it sound a bit more realistic, and the finished pattern is sounding like this. And for the effects on this flute, I had this RC20 retro color just for the wobble and the EQ. This Valhalla Vintage Verb where I tweaked the mix and the decay. This Soothe on its default settings, I just turned the depth knob from 3 to 2. And I had this EQ where I just cut out a lot of the lows and some of the low mids, ducked some of the mids and some of the highs. Then for the next thing I used this Cosmic Percloop out of my Care Package kit, and I didn't use it just to showcase it. I really used it because it fitted perfectly into the sample and gave the sample so much more texture, especially with those claps and this clap pattern on this Percloop. And for FL users, it time stretches automatically, so you don't have to do anything. And now the finished Percloop is sounding like this. And for the effects on this Percloop, I had this 3D parametric EQ2 where I just cut out some of the lows and some of the highs. Then I did the same thing with another EQ. Then this Simple Soothe on its hard setting and the depth to 4.9. And I had this reverb on its default settings, I just turned the mix to 35%. And then for the bassline, I used this X bass from Contact again. I left it on its default settings and laid down this simple pattern. It's basically just the root notes from the trumpet pattern, and it's there to give the whole sample more of a full feeling. I didn't even randomize the velocities, and the finished bassline is sounding like this. then for the effects on this bassline, I had this soothe with the depth to 9.1 and I had it on a hard setting. Then this decapitator where I played with the drive, the tone and the style. Then this free fast distortion where I turned the mix to 35% on here and then the mix to 68% on here. Then this simple EQ where I just cut out some of the muddy lows and I had it 100% in mono. And now the most important part is the mastering chain, and for the mastering chain I had this A1 stereo control with these settings. I basically just played with the stereo wide and the save bass option. Then this R compressor from Waves, which is just on there in case I want to compress the sample a bit and glue it a bit together, but for this sample I didn't really need it, so I just left it on its default settings. Then this L1 limiter from Waves just to make the sample louder. Then this sound shifter pitch 0 from Waves where I pitched it up by 1 semitone. Then this Abbey Road vinyl with these settings. This Chroma Tape 0 on the mastering big and open preset. I didn't touch any of these knobs and this is the perfect preset to make your sample sound a bit more vintage. Then this soothe on its default settings and this EQ which I didn't touch at all. It's just on there in case I want to EQ a few frequencies. And first of all, this is a sample without the mastering chain. And then this is a sample with the mastering chain. Y'all will hear a big difference, and this mastering chain is like my go-to mastering chain for almost every type of sample. So you basically can just recreate it even with stock plugins, and this is it with the mastering chain, and that's the finished sample. So yeah guys, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to my channel. And make sure to check out my kit if you want to improve your beat and sample making game. The link for that is in the comments and in the description. Use code LUCADID15 for 15% discount at checkout. And don't forget to comment something nice and to turn on the post notifications so you'll get notified every time I upload. And yeah guys, see y'all.